Hi, friends. Welcome back to the Life with Loverly podcast. In today's episode, we are pulling back the curtain, literally. I'm sitting down with the design team behind my home renovation, Anissa and Gracie of the high-end interior design firm, Truth & Co. These women have become close friends of mine over the last 2 years throughout this process, and I'm so grateful for their eye for design and bringing my vision to life. In today's episode, we are chatting about everything from how the renovation process went, small areas in the home that can make a big impact, and how to decorate some tricky areas like your coffee table and kitchen shelving. And if you're wondering how to set a home reno budget, of course, we're asking the ladies that too. We are taking you behind the scenes, room by room, to give you inspiration on ways to bring your personal design taste to life and how to make your house feel like a home. Here's my conversation with Anissa and Gracie of Truth & Co. Hi, friends. Welcome back to the episode of today's podcast. I am so excited. I have two guests in studio today, Anissa and Gracie from Truth & Co. Welcome to the studio.
Thank you for having us.
Ooh, thank you.
It's pretty cool.
This is going to be such a fun conversation, especially because we've been living in our house for a few weeks now. So Anissa and Gracie, they work for Truth & Co. and they are the design gurus and team behind our design install, which I'm still obsessed with. It's so funny. I left and went out of town, came back and was just like walking around and was like, I live here. This is so crazy.
It's awesome.
So good.
That's the dream. That's what we want to hear.
Yeah.
It truly has been such a gift, so amazing. But I've received so many questions from just like how the process works, like how I found y'all, all sorts of things. So I thought it would be really fun to just kind of dive into those and give people behind the scenes like insight on how this process works and kind of give our backstory. So that's kind of what we're going to chat about today.
It's great.
Yeah.
Excited.
So it's really funny. I don't even know if you guys know this, but a few years ago, I think it was probably 3 years ago now, my best friend who we live next door to now, they were starting their building process and she was like, do you know of any interior designers? I'm trying to I need somebody to help us. And I was like, what if I pulled my Instagram followers and just said my friend is moving and she's looking for an interior designer. Who do you guys recommend? And so I asked Instagram, who is local or sort of local to Athens. My best friend's moving. And I knew at the time, we were going to be moving, but we hadn't started the building process. We own the lot at this point. And so I did this question box and it was for her, but sort of selfishly a little for me.
Yeah, double teaming.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so many people responded back and said, Truth & Co., have you heard of them? They're in Roswell, Truth & Co. And a friend of mine had mentioned you guys. So I kind of had I had known your name, but then when I saw an overwhelming amount of people be like, Truth & Co., Truth & Co., Truth & Co., I was like, okay, I'm going to look into Truth & Co. Who are they? What are they doing? And it's so funny because here we are.
Gosh,
pretty awesome.
we are
Years
grateful
later.
for that poll.
I know, right?
Totally. That's cool. The power of social media.
Truly.
Yes.
Well, and it's interesting because our process together started when we were going to be building from the ground up.
That's right.
I vividly remember you guys coming to our house in Athens and we were all sitting around our round table. And then we went out and saw the lot and then things really shifted. We worked together probably for about 3 months, I think, before we really moved into, hey, we're actually going to renovate this house in the same neighborhood. What do you think?
Yeah.
I remember calling you and Lauren and just saying, so I need to talk to you about something. What do you think if we renovate instead? Can we still work together?
Totally. It was a happy surprise.
Yeah.
Whenever we get those calls, we're always like, what's going on? But this was an awesome one. We were excited to go see it.
And it was a great home.
Yeah, it had so much potential. Yeah. Okay, so before we get into when we walked through that home for the first time, let's back up a little bit. And can you guys share a little bit about you've met your client, you've signed on, you're yes, we're going to work together. Then what? What happens next? I mean, I know when y'all sat down with us, but I would love to kind of talk through that process for our listeners.
Yeah. I think biggest thing early on is just making sure that scope of work is fitting budget and timeline. It's our team front ends a lot of information. We're absorbing a ton. We want to gather as much as we can so we can plan. We really want to be detail oriented because when you set up on the front end, it helps you on the back end.
Totally.
So we go through this phase called design intent, and it's really kind of getting to know our client's style because each designer has probably maybe their own bent or lean towards what they like are drawn to.
Totally.
But we also want to be able to help everyone. And so learning your style and what you are drawn to. And so that design intent phase is really a time of like inspiration images and pulling stuff from us, but then also getting stuff from you and words that you've said or images that you were drawn to, or what about the image were you drawn to? And so learning that, and so that we can communicate with photos and words before we start sourcing at all.
It's like super helpful.
Yes.
I mean, I remember we sat down and we kind of went through like every room or like, it was like, what from this room do you want to take? Like, what from this room do you want to take? Or what is your vision in this room?
Yes.
Or like, and it was such a good like few hours of just like kind of brain dumping. I've always like wanted a bed that looked like this, or I've always wanted the, bathroom tile to look like this. And that to me, that meeting was so like, whoa, like this is gonna like be so cool.
Yeah, well, it's awesome. You had so many amazing images and a lot of direction for what you wanted for your home, and so our goal is to kind of capture all of that and see.
Yeah.
So, okay, how can we grow that? What does that look like throughout the rest of your home? What pieces do you really love in your current home that we really want to stick those in a new space, or how can those function in a different way? And so design intent kind of helps us with that. It's not only images, but we're also looking at lighting plans. So we love lighting. And then we're also looking at furniture plans, like what actually fits in your spaces.
Yeah.
Because how many people do you want to seat at dinner? How many people do you want to entertain in your living room? I think without those, sometimes it's either people think they have way more space than they do or way less. And so we want to make sure we're painting a realistic picture of how your home is going to function. And so that's probably one of our favorite parts of the process, though, is you're starting to see what your home could be, which is really exciting.
So how often are you guys starting a project with somebody like at the very beginning, like even maybe like working with the architect, or is that common, or are you coming in like a little bit later? Like what process are you guys usually starting?
Gosh, great question. Ideally front end, and I would say most of the time we're on the front end, whether they've selected their builder or architect. Either we're hired first or we're hired right after. But we always say the earlier the better. It's so great to be on the front end again for all that planning. And we love working with architects. We're all trying to serve the client. Our client is in the middle. We've got our architect, builder, designer. But a lot of times when you were talking about the design intent phase, I was like, oh my gosh, that spatial planning is so important. So it's hard to come in a little later in the game because it's harder to change things, whether you're redrafting plans or if they've already started framing, you're like, oh shoot, we're doing these furniture layouts and they want to see, 12 people in their living room and there's only room for 10. So it's the later we're brought in, I feel like, is not the best advantage.
Yeah, totally. And I feel like it worked really nicely to just have y'all talking with the architect or giving ideas when we were all kind of like, this room isn't doing what we want it to do. Like what are we missing? Almost having another set of eyes on it to be like, what if we try this, or let's like move this around. And you guys, I think, obviously have so much experience from other clients, other homes. So bringing that like into future projects can only be beneficial,
Especially when architects and builders are super collaborative. We've been super lucky on your project. They were amazing.
Yeah.
And so having that opportunity to kind of problem solve together is amazing.
Totally.
You get a much better product that way. So
I agree. I've told Taylor, and he has also like just given you guys so much praise. He's like, man, this has been so nice working with them, and they just are so great. It's funny. Sebastian was like the project lead, and I think this was like one of his first houses with Preston and Taylor on their team. And I'm like, okay, we've like set the bar really high for all your future projects, Sebastian. Like, this is what you expect from like the interior designers and things like that.
He was awesome too.
He has just been so great. But anyway, I want to ask so then we switched to, hey, we're doing this renovation. And you guys came out and we walked the house. And this was before we like knocked down any walls. I feel like I had a vision myself of just like, okay, I can see what we're going to do here, even though it felt crazy. But did you guys like, if you go into a renovation situation, like how do you kind of see what the potential of the home could be, you know, seeing like walls and things and knowing you're going to move it all around?
Gosh. I mean, I think it's making sure that the bones of it are good and the layout, like, can we work within this footprint? And your property is gorgeous. Like, it just had so many things going for it. And it met all of your needs and your wants. We just had to be a little bit creative kind of in the kitchen area and pantry. So what would you say?
I think it was honestly a cool flip to come in with too, because we already had a list of what you wanted from kind of planning to build. And so we got to kind of walk through the space and check off the boxes, even if they didn't quite look like what you might have wanted yet. The space was there. And I feel like that was like really special. And then too, we've talked about just the opportunity to be able to add on for your office and have the house still look beautiful and really special, and have that not be just this odd extra thing was really cool. I feel like that's really rare.
It looks like it was supposed
meant to be there.
Yeah.
The pool, the same thing. And so just we felt really like, oh man, this is, we're going to modernize this a little, take out some of the detail maybe that wasn't matching with your style, but the bones were there.
Yeah.
And then figuring out the kitchen was a fun little journey. But that house was waiting for the kitchen to kind of get switched up. So
I agree.
Regardless of what your taste is, it needed a refresh.
It was ready.
I just think it's so fun, even just seeing some of the before and after pictures that I've looked at, you know, from like when we bought the house to now, and it just is so wild to see the transformation.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I think we all had vision. We all just knew it would come together. It would just kind of took us, obviously it took a little longer than I'm sure what we like would have originally done with building from the ground up. But I think it turned out wonderful.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. It did. And you had incredible vision the whole time, which I think is really special to like. We joke about installs, but also the whole building process, it gets a lot worse before it gets better.
Yeah.
So it sits kind of a little crazy for a minute before the details start to come back into the house.
Yeah.
But
I know.
became really special.
It's funny because once it was like drywall was up, and Nichelle and I would walk around and be like, so what did we select for here? Like, what is that light fixture again? Because it was done like a year in advance.
Right.
That process I thought was so interesting too, just how far in advance you have to order things, and that was kind of wild. I was like, I don't know, what if like we change our mind and don't want brick floor in our mudroom anymore? Like, what do we do?
Right. Yeah.
But it's gotta get it ordered.
Oh yeah.
The timelines on some of this stuff are still pretty crazy. There's some things you can get in a couple of days, and then some we're waiting months and months and months. So we try to be ahead of the game.
Well, even like our shower, like some of our hardware in the shower, the plumbing fixtures, the like toilet bowl or the toilet like flusher was like getting installed like an hour before we were walking into the house. It was just but those are things like just so out of our control.
Right.
Yeah.
Just kind of roll with the punches.
Totally.
Yes.
Okay. So how do you guys get a client to like lean into their taste? You know, I know there was times like I gave y'all inspiration and you took from that. Like, how do you guys make sure that it's like what the client is really wanting?
Yeah. I think that design intent process we talked about really helps, but I think too, we have lots of calls with going over inspiration images. What do you love about these pieces? Shooting other ideas back. Sometimes too, we're trying to kind of push things a little. So like, how do you feel about this space? What do you think about this wallpaper? We're kind of just like trying to continuously grasp that style. And then we, on a very practical level, also just do a design quiz. So we try to talk through like materials, like how do you feel about polished nickel? Like if we present you something, is that the worst thing that's ever happened? So we try to like gauge some of those things before we even get into the presentation process, just so we make sure what we're presenting at least overall feels correct. And then we can make little tweaks along the way.
Yeah. Well, and I think just some advice like from the client side for those listening who might want to go down this road is just like be super honest.
Yes.
And that was one thing like Nichelle would be like, okay, well, you know, are you liking this? Like, I'm not getting the vibe that you're loving this. She's like, then tell them no. Like they want you to say like,
totally,
I like this, but I don't like this. And that is, I mean, this is where you're going to live. This is totally like your money. Yep. You have to love it.
Totally.
So I really appreciated anytime I said, I'm not loving this, or can we see some other things, or here's some more inspiration. Can we find something that looks like more like this?
Yes.
I feel like y'all respected that, or like, okay, great. Like we will take and run with it. Like it's not, you know.
Yeah. Well, we're there to serve you. That's our goal. And the feedback is, we will not take it personal. I think that's what we want. We want to make sure we're giving you the best. So no, that's awesome advice. Like, please just let people know. And if there's a reason you may just not like something, but you don't really know why, and that's okay. But then also if you do know why, like my grandmother had a sofa that looked like that and I never want that, then that's great feedback for us, because we know we won't show you a chair that looks just like it in 2 weeks. And then you don't feel like you're being heard. We want to make sure that we're hearing, digesting, and then making sure what we're sending you back is correct. Totally. That's the goal.
Your feedback is not personal to us. Like we're like not attached to the rug or the chair, but it's a very personal process.
Yes. Yeah.
And we realize that people are letting us into their personal spaces. I mean, we're like, man, we're doing, you know, master bathrooms and, you know, places where people are living every day. But then also, the client is looking at like one-offs a lot, like, oh, I like this rug, or I like this light fixture. And we're trying behind the scenes to make sure cohesively it's going to work together. So if a client's like, oh, I love this lamp, and we're like, oh my gosh, great lamp, we need to find something else because if it's the snowball effect.
Right.
Yeah.
Because if this lamp doesn't go with the side table, and the side table won't go with the rug, and then we'll have to, you know, so we're always trying to think of how does this work cohesively, but straightforward, honest. It's going to save you time. Right. It's going to save us time, being direct. And it's not, we don't take it, you know, you don't have to people please us.
Right. Exactly. You know? So true.
Yes.
So kind of going off of that, what you were just saying, is there a way to do you start in a certain room to make sure everything is cohesive with the house? I mean, like, just our house, for example, was there an area that you were like, let's start here and then like build around it? Because I do feel like walking through every room, it all like is married together very nicely, even though some of them are dark, some of them are light.
Right.
But like when you're starting this process, like where do you all usually start?
Yeah, we do it. Yes, we do a team brainstorm, and we kind of we set words for a home, and then we set a color palette for a home. And so we pick a few, maybe it's 5 colors, and those are going to repeat throughout the home over and over, whether it's a kid's room or a mudroom or a laundry room. But yeah, we're really passionate about kind of sticking to our few colors.
And some colors might be more predominant in one room. Like one room might feel more blue, and then but have sprinkle of, you know, blush, where other room might be heavier blush with sprinkles of blue. But making sure, those colors are consistent. Yeah, it could be a vase in a room, but you're just retelling that kind of color story, so it doesn't feel like there's the red room. Right. Like, wait, this came out of nowhere.
Right.
Yes.
So there's definitely there is a theme.
Yeah.
It's kind of a story throughout the home rather than a room is one thing.
Yeah.
Another room is another thing. Yeah, we want it to feel like you're just journeying, kind of wandering through and know whose house it is the whole time.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that's like, to me, that is very calming. Like one thing I feel like in past homes I've lived with, I just haven't had the bandwidth to
Totally.
make them all cohesive.
Yeah.
But that's been something I've really desired. And like, I just love being able to come in and like everywhere I am in the house is like a calming environment.
Yeah.
So I think having that cohesiveness is so important.
Well, and picking a color palette, that can be for someone that's not working with a designer, and having that, you know, you can build it over time and just, okay, I know that I'm going to add this touch in this room eventually.
Yeah.
Or this bedding, I'm going to switch out and maybe it'll feel more like this. Like it's something to build on too, which is fun.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Great.
So let's start out with like an entryway in a home. How do you make it inviting? Are there things that you guys like to specifically do in the homes that you're starting out with the entryway? I feel like in a lot of our design boards, it was like, okay, we're going to start front door entryway first. And then we would like get into like the house. But kind of like, and I think even with that question, we could even talk about like how you even build like what you put in an entryway.
Yeah.
Gosh, it's the first moment when you walk in a house. So that's your, like, what's your story? So I feel like we're always, I think we used some of your existing art, which was working with our color palette. So we were resourceful and it worked. But I think we're thinking through function, but then how are we going to tell this color story? And then how are we telling the family story? Making sure it feels personal. We always have family photographs. We want, when we do our little reveal moment, them to walk in and see not our family, it's their family. It's not our home, it's your home. And so, and then personal touches along the way. But then also, I feel like rugs are so important. And lighting, because you want to be like, wow.
Yes.
So
yeah, it's layering the colors, and then a funny thing, but something we're really passionate about, is the scent too. When you walk, so there's candles everywhere when we install, but really, when someone walks in your home, and it's really inviting color wise. It's really inviting with texture and layer, but then also it just smells good.
Yeah. Well, it's
very important.
I find myself lighting all those candles. Like if I'm going to be at home for a while, I will go around and like light all the candles, and I'm like, okay, like they had this one together and this one, you know, and like, and it just always,
it feels really welcoming and like thoughtful. I think when someone comes in, that you like prepared your house for them. So we always want it to feel like that. But a foyer is awesome.
Yeah. What about, do you have a preference over doing like a mirror, like an entryway mirror or art? I know we kind of have both, but we have that like the bigger mirror over our entryway table. You know, can you kind of go either way, or personal preference?
I think either way. I mean, if you have the option to do both, do it, because I feel like the art is going to bring in color. Otherwise, you're limited to like rug accessories or window treatments for color there. But I think a mirror is just so practical. I mean, when you're leaving the house, just, oh wait, do I need
final
to check?
look?
Exactly.
Do I have lipstick on my teeth? Or, you know, or guests know, okay, this is where I can put my keys or dump some stuff. So it's always just nice to think to have a mirror. Also, it makes the space feel larger.
Agreed.
Just from, you know, that point. So if you can do both, do both. But
it's funny because I feel in this house, I have not as many mirrors as I've had in previous homes. And I don't know if that's like good or bad, but sometimes I'm like, oh man, I like need a mirror to, you know, to see something. There's one on the way out of like the entrances, but I kind of thought about that the other day. I was like, this is sort of funny. I don't really miss them, but because I love all the art and what like kind of took its place.
Sure.
It's just funny what you get used to seeing all the time.
Yep. Absolutely.
Let's talk about our family room. This is one of my favorite spots. I think we brought a lot of color in the family room. Our previous family room had more of like a neutral toned sofas and, you know, wood tones. And it was very like light and bright and airy. And I feel like for some, like somehow we're still getting light and bright, but we've got a lot of like depth to the room. I don't know, Gracie, are there any like things that went through your mind as we were kind of designing that space?
Yeah, I think so. First, we asked kind of just needs. Like with kids, the sofas are performance fabric. That's like very practical. I know Chris wanted recliners, so we wanted to get him recliners that didn't look like recliners,
Right.
which was awesome. But then color palette wise, so fun that you were willing to kind of go with some pop. So we went, the sofas are blue, this like really rich blue color. We brought in that rusty color and some like fun ottomans. And then the recliners are leather. So we've got layered kind of color there, but then layered material too. So coffee tables being marble. We've got the dark lamps and then the side tables being a lighter color. We're trying to always balance. And then we just layered lighting in there too, which we love doing. So you have the tiny lamps, but then you also have the overhead lighting. You have picture lights in there. We just wanted kind of texture to keep layering. And then your rug is a fun pattern.
Yeah.
And so we just wanted that space to feel like you could lounge in there, use it as a family, but also be really special. And I think the color ended up being really awesome, especially with your windows too.
I agree.
Yeah.
It's where the room is. We have the back wall is just full of floor to ceiling windows, which is funny because we originally, and we have the like light or the curtains and window treatments for that. And towards the end of the like build process, I was like, I don't want to put any window treatments on these right now. And I think it's working wonderfully just to like look out and just be so pretty and open.
Oh yeah. And your view is amazing in there.
Yeah.
So I feel like that space is so fun, but it really is, that is the definition of the color palette in your home.
Right.
Yes. And then the shelving, we went much more neutral, kind of trying to calm everything down. You have this awesome arches, this amazing, wood base, but just trying to do some layered special pieces, but go a little more subdued.
Yeah. And it was really important for me to have like a really pretty, functional, livable living room because that's where our family like sits and hangs out. But it also, we're hiding toys and games and stuff in those cabinets, which was really important for me to have because I want to be able to be like, hey, let's bring out a game or let's do your magnet tiles right here and we'll move the stuff around on the coffee table. But then it can go back to like what brings joy, in that room. And of course, like the girls are so funny. They've taken over the recliners. They
oh my gosh, so cute.
The recliners. Like they'll be like, wait, push me back. Can you get me the blanket?
Oh,
they want like
my
a
gosh.
green blanket over. It's so funny. Chris is like, okay.
Well, I thought it was mine. He gets a sofa.
Exactly. I'm like, you can just go down to the basement. The movie room is where you want to be anyway.
Totally. That's pretty awesome though.
It's so funny. I looked over the other day. We were watching a family movie and I was like, this is funny.
The girls have taken
Things
over.
have changed. That's pretty awesome. But practical use in a family room is so important.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay, so coffee tables. I feel like this is a really hard thing sometimes to decorate. What do you guys suggest putting on them? What is kind of like give us just some design advice on like how you would decorate a coffee table.
Man, I mean, always candles.
Yes.
Always books. I love flipping through coffee table books, things that's kind of sparked my interest. And we're doing a lot of those open kind of holders so you can look into the book instead of it just being the top cover. Always fresh flowers. And if you can't keep up with the fresh flowers, we're doing a lot of stuff dried.
Yeah.
And I can't believe it, but we're even going into like artificial
to
just so that keep fresh flowers somewhere in your house. You deserve it
agree.
all the time, somewhere. But also, like if you're dispersing them throughout your house, that is a lot to. I got to buy fresh flowers for my bedroom every day or every week.
Right.
So I feel like that. Trying to think, and I mean,
and we love like a tray, like have a landing spot for things. Like we talk about for coasters is like very practical for remotes. If we can have boxes, sometimes we'll put for remotes, but thinking about too, just how you're going to use every day. But if
it
you have
like
a giant,
organizes the clutter.
Gives a landing spot. And then, if you're going to have a candle, get pretty matches. Like there's little stuff, but then you'll actually use what's on your coffee table rather than being kind of scared.
Well, I feel like, what's the little thing called that burns out the candle?
The snuff.
Snuff.
Yes.
So there's a few of those around and I have loved just being like, oh, I feels so fancy.
It does feel
Getting
so
my,
fancy.
like, candle out.
Yes.
You know?
And the wick trimmer, it just feels like an extra little happy thing.
Yeah. And I think it's what can be so great about your home is just like finding those little ways to like bring yourself joy.
Totally.
Yeah.
And they don't have to be
Yeah.
expensive.
No.
They're just little extras. We call them little happies
Yeah.
in the
Yeah.
house, but finding it can be a $5 item, but it feels like special and important.
I agree.
Thoughtful.
Yeah, totally.
And I love the like kind of rattan links that we use to kind of, so we did 2 coffee tables butted up together. So it was a little bit more space to decorate and kind of work with. But just all of the like, again, color, texture, just I love the way that it came together. But I think the tray is one thing that I'm like, this just makes so much sense. It's like the layering piece, the books, the candle. There's so many ways I feel like you can adjust and like love a coffee table space.
Yes.
I agree.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move into our bedroom. I feel like this is another room I just love. I love walking in there and being like, wow, this is so great. Let's talk about kind of how we made some decisions for that room. We ended up keeping our bed. We were going to get a different bed and move that one, and ended up, it just kind of was really flowing with the other things we were picking out for the house. And I think a fun touch I love that we did was the couch at the end of it. Is there any like tips that you guys normally start with if somebody's like, we want to just completely start new? What do we do?
Yeah, I think we always lean back on our furniture layouts, but that room is a pretty awesome before and after, but also just practically there was a lot of space in there.
Right.
So something we were exploring for a while was just how to make the space feel intentional and not like there's just wide open gaps of, without function. And so the built-ins that you guys worked on are phenomenal.
They're gorgeous.
That-
Practical.
Yes, so practical, transform the space, room
shelving.
for beautiful things, family photos. That was really awesome. And then your bed was just amazing. I think sometimes people try to like reinvent the wheel. You love that bed, so let's use that bed.
Yep.
And then the love seat is just like a fun, like go sit, watch TV, put your shoes on, like just having another little loungy space. And then you have some really cool swivel chairs.
Yes.
And like a little nook that is a really cool like reading spot too. So learning just how to kind of layer in the space, I think is really important. But using pieces that you love, like sometimes it's not, you don't have to reinvent the wheel.
Right.
You just layer on what you have. And then make sure that it's all stuff you're going to use.
Yeah.
Like we were exploring adding a dresser in there and then we realized you don't really need it. So that wall have a giant mirror on it. And so just trying to make sure it functions well. And the window treatments are so fun in there too.
It's crazy how cozy the room can feel when you have the window treatments. What is y'all's suggestion if somebody's wanting to like add a layer of coziness to their room, to their windows? What do you suggest that they do?
Oh, yeah. I mean, window treatments for sure. It does add that layered effect. I mean, if you can do both, like Roman shades and panels, that's like extra layer of cozy. But just adding that texture really warms up the space for sure.
Yeah. We did the Roman shades and we close them at night and I'm so glad we went with the motorized option for that room. Everything else is, pull down, which has been so easy to do. But having like just that kind of, it feels like a little luxury of just like pressing the button and it's like the room is closing for the night, like getting ready for bed. So that was a good, I would say like we had a few things like that around the house that I was like, okay, like this feels like a little bit of a splurge, but now I'm like, I'm so glad that it's so functional. It makes sense. We use it every single day.
Yeah. And picking your moments. We recommend that anytime, especially with motorized or a specialty window treatment. Like where are you going to live the most? Some people that would be really important for them in their living room, but most of the time it's their primary bedroom.
Yeah.
And it's pretty awesome.
Yeah. It totally is.
That's where you are all the time. Like thinking this, you can cut back on secondary spaces or not to nix the guest, but it's
Right.
like, okay, you're in that bed all the time.
Right.
Your guest room might stay empty,
Right.
half the year or less. So it's
Totally.
like spend there. I always think of The Holiday, Kate Winslet.
Yes.
When she jumps into bed and she
Yes.
she's
Yes.
screaming, and I'm
It's
like,
so powerful. Yeah, you
It
feel great.
is. I know. It's so true. All right. So let's talk about the primary bath. This is also probably one of my favorite spaces in the house.
Pretty awesome.
What kind of, I feel like I gave you guys some inspiration. We just kind of like ended where we did,
Yes.
like sort of all together. But what kind of went in it for you as you were helping design that?
Oh man, Brittany, once you said you were open to checkered floor, we were thrilled. So that was so special. Finding those floors, they're tumbled, they're old, they have variation in them. They're so dreamy. So once we knew that was possible, then it was bringing in the wood, actually from the kitchen again, but in a different style in the vanity. That window transformed that bathroom, got you some natural light in there, which was something y'all had a lot of vision for and was so beautiful. And that tub is so special. It's got some fun little curves on it.
profile.
And then really like lighting wise, we tried, the sconces are very spa and hotel like, and then your chandelier is super fun.
Yeah.
Unexpected.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then repeating the arch from your hallway. Your hallways, it kind of goes into your shower. And then making sure that tile also felt really special in your shower.
Yeah.
Like the floor is awesome. How do we make sure that the wall tile also feels really special? So that just leaves, just got all this texture and variation in it and almost a little blush to it.
Yeah,
So
it does.
So that was such a fun space to keep layering. And then really just lots of brass in there, but it's all unlacquered. So it's all going to patina together, which is really fun too. So it's a bathroom I think will only get better, which is a very fun space to design.
It really is. And I love all the little touches that you guys added, like the wood stool next to the bathtub and the little, just like making it practical. I mean, I took a bath and like set my shampoos and stuff there. And I was like, this makes sense.
Yes.
But it looks pretty to just leave sitting there.
Right.
When, we're not using the bathtub.
Yes.
The hooks, like just different things that just really like filled out the space were just some great touches that I was like, I can't even visualize like what they're going to do here, but I know I'm just going to like those were the little things that I felt were so important to like walk in and just be like, that's how they I would have never done that. Like, yes, like that's
awesome.
It looks great.
Yeah.
So.
We want a style for it to be beautiful, but we want you to use it.
Right.
We never want to leave a house and people be scared to move stuff around or touch
gosh.
things.
Live
Like it's
in your
yours.
space.
Yes.
Yeah.
Use it. So that's cool to hear.
Yeah, we say it's just stuff.
It
Just
is.
stuff.
And it's all like, I was like, if they come over to my house today, like I feel like it looks the same, like as when y'all left.
Oh, which is too, though, if it doesn't, it's also okay. It's so funny.
It was designed so like livably,
Good.
like it truly,
Yeah.
Although I think the girls' rooms have like a lot more stuff on the dressers now. They have all their collections
That's
of
perfect.
things, which is so funny. They're just like, Mommy, they got me a chair. Look at this chair.
Oh my gosh.
Actually, I will tell you, Collins' favorite thing about her room is the notebook and pen that was on her dresser. She was like, they got me a notebook and this pen. And I was like, of all of this.
Totally.
And she loves to like write and draw and like a little journal. And we asked her, like, what are you thankful for in your room tonight? She's like, my pen and journal they gave me.
That's incredible.
So those little touches really do matter.
That is the best. I'll remember that for other things. We need to get notebooks.
You talk about the happies, but that is one of our favorite things. Those little thoughtful things are like, they bring us joy.
Totally.
And when we see a homeowner like notice our kids, we're like, oh, it works.
It works. It really, it's so funny. Okay, let's move into the kitchen. I feel like a lot of design we completely moved the orientation of the kitchen around. But there were a lot of things that we wanted. We wanted like not a lot of counter space. We wanted a lot of cabinets, a lot of drawers. I guess kind of let's talk through like how did we accomplish the look that we ended up with.
Yeah. I mean, I think we had a lot of cool inspiration of kind of the white oak kitchen idea. You had some amazing inspiration for that hood in your kitchen too.
I was like very specific. I was
Yes.
like, this has to be an arched hood, plaster, like, or whatever material. I
Which
think
is
they ended up
awesome.
doing
Which you
stucco.
you did repetition.
Yeah,
with the house with
exactly.
So those like material wise, it was pretty awesome. We talked through like different lighting ideas, but the cabinetry kind of process is one that is, it takes so much detail.
It
And so
does.
y'all were amazing, but it is lots of drawings and lots of reviewing and lots of talking about the function of each and every drawer and
Yeah.
where are we putting our utensils and our cooking, like
Right.
our spoons and where do our plates go, and really thinking through those things. Like we want this to be so pretty, but also you want to know where your cups are going to go. And so
Right.
that part of the process takes a while to
Yeah.
just talk through, work through, make sure your items are going to fit. And then I feel like the treasure, the hidden like gem is that pantry.
Yes.
That ended up being created because that was not there.
No.
It was just kind of dead space. And that turned into so much practical storage. And
Yes.
your pantry side, and then there's pretty things in there. And talking about where Chris can make smoothies,
Yeah.
like really getting to like, how does every day function in our home? And so we loved getting to kind of work through that. But
Well, and I would say just like for those listening who might be like on the edge, do I hire a designer to help with this process? Getting on calls with the cabinet makers and you guys and us going through all of the drawings together. I mean, I remember we had like several like multiple hour long calls of just, okay, so they've mentioned they really want XYZ. Like, where are we getting that in this space?
Right.
Like, let's redraw that to get here. Or we really want to have like pullouts next to the oven that is like where all the spices go or where the utensils are.
Sure.
Or this needs to be hidden. How do we make sure? So having somebody to like advocate too, because the cabinet maker, which they're amazing and loved working with them too, they do this all the time,
Right.
you know? So they're just like, well, this has worked in this kitchen. Like, we're going to put it here again.
Yeah.
But you guys were able to come in and be like, well, all of this inspiration they've given us on really wanting like the specific coffee bar
Right.
or the shelving to look a certain way. I feel like I knew you were advocating for us to make sure we were getting what we wanted. So I would say that's definitely like another plus because without you on those calls, I might have been like, or just overlooked it or forgotten that I said I
Sure.
wanted it because it's like brain overload.
Well, and if you don't look at drawings like that every day, I
Right.
feel like it's hard to know kind of what you're even perceiving, or, you know, the feet on your cabinets can be odd
Right.
and maybe you want to change that. Or sometimes there's shelving that you're like, this is so impractical. I'm
Right.
never going to be able to put anything on something that deep. So yeah, they're long meetings, but they're super important.
Yeah.
That extra bout of confidence for sure. So I love that you said advocate because I was thinking that too. It's like also if you had an initial vision,
Yeah.
you don't want to like get lost in the weeds that
Sure.
you forget your end goal. And
Right.
so if we can help come alongside and be like, no, this is what she wants.
Right.
Let's make it happen. Let's find a way to
Yeah.
implement that. Is a great thing.
Yeah. I would say another one of my favorite kind of areas is the breakfast nook.
Yes.
You love that space.
I know. I feel like I remember kind of giving you like, I'm really thinking we do like cabinets all the way around here and like a bench. And I felt like your eyes were just like, yes. Like you just could visualize it. But again, even like the rug in there has like a little bit more of like a rust tone, which matches those seats from the living room,
Right.
which matches the ottoman in the keeping room. Like it was just a great place to like carry through, but
Totally.
such good storage,
Yes.
more opportunity for styling and shelving. I love that
Gosh.
space. I often sit over there and like eat lunch and just like look out over the garden. It just feels like so just heavenly.
I think every breakfast nook needs all that storage. I mean,
Yes.
'cause that's where all like the clutter gets
Yeah.
dumped on the kitchen table. I mean, I know when we walked in, I was like, I really am jealous of this spot because I was just seeing the girls like coloring and I'm
Yes.
like, oh, I need a space for that.
Well, and it's funny because they sit over there and color and do arts and like,
So
and it's so great because then they're we're cooking and they're over
Right.
there like doing arts and crafts, and then they can just put it away right in those drawers and we can eat dinner at the same table.
Yes.
So it has turned to be like super functional, which I was hoping that it would be. But that is just, I remember like turning the corner at the install and being like, oh my goodness, this is like better than I envisioned.
And just sitting there and like the view out is so special. And then, for parties and stuff, to have your whole kitchen, that's an extra space, the living room, they all kind of flow together.
Kind of just flows together so perfectly. I agree.
It was that turn the corner moment too. You do not expect it.
Right.
You expect a dining table or kitchen table and chairs, but when you turn around, you're like, oh my gosh, there's a whole moment on that wall, especially with styling.
Yeah. So it was so good.
That was one of the first places we styled. Yeah, very happy.
Well, and those like two pieces of art, I feel like I still look at them. I remember like last night we were sitting there and I looked up and I was like, this just feels like me in art. Like, like I am like, I love them so much. That was such like a sweet surprise.
Good. That's
I remember being like, I don't think I picked that out, but I love it. Like,
that's awesome. We saw them and hoped you'd love them.
Yeah,
so.
I do. And they are, every time I look at them, I'm just like, I just love it. So thank you for putting those sweet little moments throughout the house. There's still times I'm just like, and that's so great. I love that.
That's our favorite part. So it's awesome.
That's so great. Okay, so let's think back to our project. What was the biggest like snag, or do we have any like where we were like, oh gosh, what are we gonna do?
I think we were really lucky on this project. We didn't have a lot of like, we can't get this anymore, or this is like, we didn't have a lot of majors. I think the brick was something that took a minute to find. What we had sourced was no longer available by the time it actually needed to be ordered. And so, but I actually think that what you ended up with is better than what we had originally sourced. So sometimes that works out. It's got a little more character to it. I think overall though, y'all being really decisive, and then we, the builder being awesome and really communicative, I think it was okay. We did okay. We didn't have any majors.
I think that it just kind of kept getting like pushed back a little bit, but nothing, which is like as to be expected when you're building. Like, we were like, oh, great, we'll be done at Christmas. Oh, great, we'll be done in February. It just was like, when are we going to be done?
Yes.
But that, I feel like there was nothing crazy where we were like, oh no, we can't get that.
Right.
But I agree, like we selected so much. I think if you go into it and you're like, try to prepare as much as possible.
Right.
Yes.
Hopefully that we can avoid some of those things from happening.
Totally. Yeah. And we try to order as soon as you've approved things, like as close to that as possible, so that stock is accurate. I'm sure we had a few reselections, but we try to stay on top of those things to make sure you're getting what you want.
Right.
Which is always a game.
Yes.
Where like
the
it
dance
wasn't
of
stock
stock.
when we presented and when we purchased things, changed. But
So one of the girls actually in the office was wondering this process. She was like, I just thought it was like so cool. Like obviously you picked out a lot of like the furniture or the rugs, like you knew that stuff that was coming, but all the like, little knickknacks or like photo frames or all those like little pieces that you guys decorated with, like how soon did you start sourcing those items? Kind of like, what is your process with that? Because that was not anything I was like, I mean, I had some things that I'm like, feel free to use if you want.
And we went through that.
Yes. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Yeah, we do so we show you design boards with all your furniture, your rugs, all that. We present those. And then accessories we keep just internal, but we do boards as well. So we'll go room by room and I'll list out, so a living room coffee table, what do I think we need on it? And so we literally list out, I want a vase, I want 6 books, I want a candle, we plan like that for every single space. We need
nightstands.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, all of it.
Throw pillows, this many. We need this many throw blankets. And then there's always just stuff that we love and we're not sure we're going to use it, but you just have to have it. This looks like Brittany. She has to have this thing. And so we plan that way. That's probably 3 months before an install is we'll start those boards, and then we start ordering and packing it all at the office, making sure it looks like what we thought it would.
And I've got to brag on our team, but our team is so organized that we're labeling each item and where it goes, in what room, and what it goes on. So it'll be like master bedroom, primary bedroom, nightstand, and it's like, or Brittany's nightstand.
Yeah.
So we'll know exactly going in. And so also that helps us be one, organized. And then if we're missing anything, we know we've got time to source for that. But then two, when we get to install, we're just efficient.
Right.
We can drop those bins in those spaces and we're running through the house.
Sure.
Yeah.
And I'd say 90% of the stuff stays where we thought it would. And then sometimes you're like, this vase is meant to be here. And I didn't know that till I got in person. And so then we switch it up. But we joke about it, especially when we showed up at your house. I mean, there's thousands of items by the time we arrive, and we're buying pencils for the pencil cup.
Yeah.
Like it's little things, but our goal is that you walk in and you live there now.
Right.
And that it's kind of ready for you to use
Oh my
as much as
goodness.
we can, at least.
Yeah. Which I felt that exactly. Like I was like, okay, now let's sit down and like enjoy this now.
Awesome.
Which was so wonderful. Okay, we've talked about the install process a few times, and I want to go into detail because I think so many people are like, wait, what? How did this like come about? And I know we were out of town because you guys prefer for like your client to not like come at all for that time frame.
Yes.
Is it typically like a week's time? And just like, what is the process? I know Nichelle was like, it was crazy. There was just like people everywhere. But like,
Yes.
everybody wants to know how that goes down.
Oh man.
It is a process. We, ideally love our client not to be there because we just, you've seen the board, you've touched and felt, fabrics and rug samples, but like this is the moment for you to have that awe moment.
Yeah.
And it's up to you if you want to sneak and see it. Of course, you're welcome. It's your house, but we love having that moment with our homeowners. So yeah, we're having. I mean, usually it's several truckloads when we're doing, depending on square footage of house. There are several truckloads, a lot of, there's our team, the receiver, delivery trucks. We've got custom rugs coming in, custom drapery coming in. We usually have like 4 to 5 different trades or vendors in the house coming in with our install.
Yep.
Not only if they're finishing touch-ups or whatever with the builder. So it's a lot.
Yes.
It's like our, behind the scenes.
So we'll like very practically, we print out all your floor plans, all your design boards. We put them all up at the front of the house, and then we label every room.
Yeah.
We give everybody a tour, and then it's like a free for all.
Then it's
Unload
like,
the trucks,
go.
Yeah.
bring it all in. Someone on our team will be checking in all the furniture as it comes through the door.
Yep.
Someone is in the room with the receiver, setting the rug with them, making sure it's where we want it, setting the nightstands, all of that. And then throughout the next days, it's checking in all accessories. It's putting in light bulbs, making sure lights are plugged in and extension cords are run and rug corners are on. There's a lot of like tiny details.
Tags are off, washing dishes, washing bedding, washing towels.
Yes. So it's a lot of little things. The first couple of days, Nichelle is the best. And she came in and it was, I mean, there was stuff everywhere. And she was like, you guys are doing great. She's so encouraging. And so, but that's the chaos we love because we know what's coming. We know it's about to get finished and you're about to be back in your house. So,
and that's probably a moment too. If a homeowner walked in, it would look like chaos.
Yes.
But in our heads,
we know it's okay.
It's organized, and behind the scenes, we have a giant internal checklist that we go through every day, and we're prioritizing. At the end of the day, we regroup and say, okay, this got done. Great, we don't have to do that tomorrow, or this didn't get done. It needs to be top priority for tomorrow. So we don't want someone to be like, oh my gosh, my house, there's boxes everywhere. Like, oh,
we got this.
We got this.
Just you wait.
It's just you wait. It's going to be great.
Yeah.
Well, and how funny is it that y'all stayed at my sister-in-law's Airbnb while y'all were
The
here?
coolest thing, the smallest world, also a very cool Airbnb.
Yeah.
And she is lovely.
Yes.
She was so great. I was like, this lady's so nice.
I know. And then we made the connection. We're like, this is wild.
I had no
It was
clue.
so crazy. I know when she texted me and she was like, you're never going to guess who's staying. And I was like, I didn't even think of that as like an option.
Yeah, it was pretty
You
great.
know, that is just so funny.
Yes.
So after you guys get everything set back up and then we have this like reveal moment, which I thought was just so fun. We came in and, I feel like with the nature of my job and I wanted I had a photographer there just like taking pictures so I could like always remember it. Like obviously we might redecorate and change things around or like knickknacks might change, but I wanted to like remember it like as it was set, like before we started living there. And then we walked through and that was just such like, I feel like all the emotions just like hit of like, we've been working on this together for 2 years and here it is all done. And it was just so fun for you guys to kind of like walk us around and show us like what was going on. And it was just so fun.
It is our favorite moment.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like Christmas morning.
Yeah.
We joke about it, but it really is. It's the culmination of thousands of decisions, thousands of items. Usually our projects are anywhere, shortest I would say is a year, longest is 3.5.
Wow.
And so it's that trust, building trust over those years. And then y'all have trusted us to steward your funds and you're trusting us with this design decisions. And we can present and show you these things as best we can. But there's nothing like walking in a furnished space. So we want to set the music, get those candles lit, make sure you have a little something to munch on. And then it's like that aha moment. And like it brings us so much joy. And there's an addictive quality of like why we do design. It's for that moment. It's for families to enjoy their space, to make memories in. That's all it's about.
Totally. And for them to walk in and feel like, oh, this is mine.
Yes.
Like it looks like me. It feels like me. It feels like my family. That's our goal. We've all been in beautiful spaces before, but when it looks like, oh my gosh, this is what I wanted, even in ways that are unexpected or totally just, you weren't sure how they would work out just yet. We wanted to make sure it feels like you.
And I loved seeing my stuff that I like we brought from the other house living in like this new space and like it felt like new and repurposed and just like it had a new purpose here. And so that was really cool to walk throughout each room that we like that beautiful chest that's in the dining room. You know, like I love it when I fell in love with it and it went fine in our house, but I think it's like was made for the room that it's in now. You know?
Totally. And fresh eyes on things. Like we all have our own homes and you stare at it day after day. So it's fun when somebody else sees the potential of what it could be used for. So,
totally. Okay. A burning question that I've received, and I know people listening are just curious, but like how much is a service like this cost? Are there different like levels that you guys offer? How could like, if somebody is wanting to build a house and they're wanting to like set a design budget, do you have any advice on like where they should start or kind of like what that looks like?
Great question. The earlier the better. Just so you can plan. Also, we want to be mindful of like our services, but then coming up with a budget for your hard furnishings, like which would be your plumbing, light fixtures, all that. But then the builder is building his budget. So you want to just not look at, okay, what's my construction budget?
Right.
You want to plan the architect, the designer, so that you know your overall budget. So we say the earlier the better is awesome. And then generally, I mean, you could say around 15 to 18, maybe 20% is what you're going to expect to spend on furnishings and design services. So somewhere in there, it all depends on square footage, and then also like level of home. So if you're kind of going with major, like construction selections that are very, I don't know, not like super high end. So that's going to always change and affect your bottom line, your overall. So if you really like nice things everywhere, that's going to affect.
It will cost a little bit more. I do think going back to like including you guys at the beginning, I remember it being so beneficial when we would be like, okay, Preston gave us this much in lighting, like in the budget, do you guys feel based off of like the inspiration I've sent you, like some of the things I've been like, this light fixture, like our dining room light fixture was like, I was like, I have to have this. Like, this is just what it is going to be. I know it's going to be like, where can we save in another room?
Totally.
But having y'all's eyes on some of those budgets and helping them, or I think there was even a few that was like, this is a little high. Like, I think we can like save some money here and like reallocate over here. that was really helpful too.
We love seeing like what they're pricing tile to be, because we can go, you may want something amazing in your kitchen, and then we'll go, you know, a little lower in a secondary bath or countertops. Oh man, you've already said you want this material in your kitchen. We know we're going to go higher than that. So let's cut back somewhere else. So we love just reviewing those things, not to correct them, but just so we're all on the same page, and we're not showing you something that you fall in love with that you can't have or are not going to spend money on. We want to make sure we're all working together to make sure we're presenting the proper things.
So one other thing that I feel like was a selling point for Chris on this whole process, you know, because I come to him and I'm like, okay, I really want to hire a design team to like help us do all the stuff, and they're going to help us pick out everything, and you know, all he's seeing is like, how much is this going to cost?
Sure.
And I was like, one thing that's going to be so beneficial is at the finish line, when we are ready to move in and we've been waiting and all of our stuff, like they are going to assemble it. They are going to hang everything on the walls. They are going to hang the curtains. Think of all those times it takes us forever to, you know, and I was like, for me being able to walk in and that stuff be done and we can just start living there was something I was like, to me, this is worth being a part of our budget because it's going to be such a help for us later. I mean, just knowing like how, you know, I run a company, I don't always have the time to do some of these things. So it just felt like such an easy, like that really sealed the deal for him. He was like, so you're telling me I'm not going to have to hang anything? And I was like, yes, like they will hang all the pictures, like, you know, and so for, you know, the guys who might normally take on some of those responsibilities.
They're free of them.
They are.
I know. Our team is amazing. And then I feel like our secret weapon is our receiver. And so as your furniture all comes in, they're checking it. They're making sure it looks good. They bring it all over. They help us place it. They help us. We had an entire window treatment team working on this. And then we mark heights for art, but they go and hang it. And we're kind of collaborating with them all along the way. But it takes a lot of people, but they're pretty amazing what the kind of work that they can pull off. So it is. It's our goal is once we leave, you feel good to go, and you just get to enjoy. No battling trying to make sure window treatments are level.
I know, it's so true.
The little things,
So in our home, what are each of your favorite rooms from the house?
So good. You go ahead.
We talked about this. Breakfast room, just like we talked, unexpected. The pink color on the cabinetry, the rug, it's kind of a little bit of a tonal room. It's kind of blues and greens, but you still have that rust and some blush. But just the styling on that wall of kind of shelving with accessories. So how beautiful it is, but how practical that room is. And then
I think mine is the keeping room in the front and moody with the wood. I just think too what that came from. It was like this dark paneled manly office. And it ended up this like moody, but really it feels like it just feels like this really special space to like curl up, read a book, sit with a friend. I remember that was something you talked about. Like I just want to have a friend over and we have a cup of coffee and we just talk in there. The ottoman and the rug in there are just so dreamy. So I think that's probably my favorite. It feels like such a cool contrast to your dining room. It's just a fun space.
And that's, I feel like, so unexpected because we did a black paint color in there, like with the wood. And so, you know, and like nowhere else in my life would I ever paint like walls black. But in there, it just works. And the light fixture is so good.
Thanks for being willing to do that. That was a bold one.
I know. I love it. I feel like it's so unique. And I remember I texted Anissa like one of the first mornings. Maybe it was like, I guess it was like we'd been there for like 3 days or something. I texted you on a Monday morning and I was like, I just sat in this room and did my quiet time and like watched the sunset. And it was just like, this is like what I've been dreaming of. Like I've been dreaming of waking up early and having a place to go to like drink a cup of coffee and like read my Bible and like pray and just feel like calm and then like it just so happens the sun rises out the window right
so
there.
dreamy. We didn't plan that.
We didn't know. That was already there. But it's just like all these things that like came together and these
So
like
cool.
vision that I had for years of like someday I want to be able to do that. Like,
awesome.
so
that is like a dream for us that how you're using the space. We love hearing clients saying like, this is how we're, you know, in this, and you've got a lot of options too to sit.
I know. We have a lot of seating. I was telling Chris yesterday, I was like, you know, what if one morning we just sat over here in these chairs and like drank our coffee and like talked and, you know, and he was just like, we can, you know, and I'm like, this would be so fun. And, you know, I'm
awesome.
like romanticizing like everything in every room.
That's awesome.
But I like, why not?
Yeah,
you know?
totally. It's yours.
Yeah,
it's there.
Exactly. Well, wrapping up this episode, I have been asking all of my guests this season, what was the most meaningful act of kindness that somebody has extended to you that has had a lasting impact on your life?
So good.
That's such a sweet question.
Yes.
Do you want me to go?
Go ahead.
Okay. I thinking about this, I love this question. It's so special. But I think when I was in college, I lived just a couple states away from home, but there was a family that let me live with them when I was interning. And they just kind of made me a part of their life. Like I was at holidays, I was at every dinner. I was just kind of included. I would have coffee with the sweet mom every Sunday before church. Like she just was so intentional, and they were so intentional about just letting me feel a part when I couldn't always go home during breaks or weekends. And it just kind of transformed my life. My family had been that for a lot of people, holidays and dinners. We always had like the extra friends come over, and I loved that. But getting to be on the receiving end of that really changed my life of how I want to interact with people, how I want my home to feel, how I want dinners to feel. And so they're really special people that kind of marked my college life, that changed just how I kind of see other people and what the purpose of having people over for dinner is. As silly as that sounds, just I felt so loved there. And so
I love that.
I think that's it.
That's really special. What about you, Anissa?
Gosh, this was such a great question because I feel like it's helping me continue to practice gratitude. There's two little things, lots of moments of people just being kind and generous with either time or money. But I would say just my parents, which might be like an obvious answer, but just making sacrifices for our family. I grew up in Toronto, Canada. My grandparents were refugees from Ukraine and Russia. And so my parents always wanted to live in the U.S. So I moved here when I was 12, became a citizen 5 years ago. Woohoo!
Wow.
And I've been married now 20 years. And my husband and I, we honeymooned in watercolor because I couldn't leave the country.
Yeah.
And we had no money. So it's like, where do we go? We're going to go to 30A. We couldn't even like afford to go to Hawaii or Alaska, which would be like very extravagant.
Right.
So, and my dream there was one day, honey, I would love to design and work on houses on 30A. And Alice Beach was just like a dream. And so I had a business mentor, fast forward a long time later, but in 2016, I had a mentor that I was invited into this group of businesswomen, and just hardworking, integrity, honest, and just she influenced me so much. And then one day she said in 2017, we're building a house in Alice Beach. Would you want to be the designer on it?
Oh my gosh.
And it was just this moment of my parents believing in me because they've always encouraged me to push for my dreams. And then this couple, the Miles, that just believed in me when I thought I couldn't. And I feel like there's these moments in life where it's like, I'm not, you get married and you're like, well, I don't really know how to be a wife.
Right.
But someone believes in me, and then, or being a mom. And then that other level of being an entrepreneur. And like, okay, someone sees something in me, and just taking that leap of faith. And so I feel like it's my parents and this couple, the Miles, that have just, and my husband, he's awesome. Yeah. But those are like the two moments. So,
well, it's funny you say that because once after that Instagram, where everybody was like, you should reach out to Truth & Co. So then I started looking into you guys and I was like, wait, they're like designing homes in Alice Beach. And so much of, I feel like my inspiration and even like certain aspects of like the exterior and like things that we did with the pool, I wanted to look similar to what you would find in Alice Beach.
Yeah.
And so that was such like a great thing throughout this process. I kept saying like, well, I know they'll be able to handle my wishes because like I love what they're doing at their houses in Alice Beach, or I love like, so to be able to see some of that, which I think is important to look at who you might work with and align with their styles. But how crazy is just like that whole, I don't know, I just love that. That's really awesome.
It's my dream.
Yeah.
And we're still working down there, and I'm like, I still pinch myself, and I'm like, I'm so grateful. So
I told Chris, I'm like, someday when we get our Alice Beach house, like elbow, he's like, yeah, okay, someday. I'm like, I'm going to call Anissa and she can do this again down there.
We would love to.
We would be honored. Yes.
Well, this has been such a great episode. I feel like we've talked about so many great home decor tips. You guys have like given great advice to our listeners. So I really appreciate you taking the time and coming on the podcast today.
Thank you so much for having us.
Yes, thank you. Thanks for trusting
Truly
us.
honored.
It's been amazing.
Yep.
Can you tell our listeners where they can find you guys on Instagram?
Yes, we're just Truth & Co. We're an interior design firm. So we're based out of Roswell, Georgia.
Yes. Awesome. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks.